I have a couple of really big batteries. One is smart, the other not so much. Let me show you what I mean. This behemoth over here is 280 amp hours, and I made it. I bought the cells, I bought a BMS. One of the things that I'm able to do with it is look at the state of charge using my phone. It has a Bluetooth dongle on it that allows me to connect to the BMS and then sort out whether the battery has 280 amp hours in it or whether it has 10 amp hours in it or whatever the case might be. This beast over here is 260 amp hours, as you can see on the label. However, while it has a BMS, I have no way of knowing what the real state of charge on it is. The only options I have for looking at the state of charge on this thing are basically putting a multimeter on it, and after putting a multimeter on it, getting the voltage, looking up that voltage on a chart that is not exactly accurate, and I have a rough idea of where the state of charge is at. Now that is fine for a lot of people, but for me, it's not enough. I may have to deal with it, but I'm going to try to do something about it. What am I going to try to do about it? Well, while sitting around and thinking about this problem, I realize it has a BMS. If it has a BMS, that BMS may very well have the necessary contacts on it to put a Bluetooth dongle on it. Now, I don't want to go buy a Bluetooth dongle just on that, off chance. But guess what? I have a Bluetooth dongle here. I'm going to pop this thing open, check the guts, and see if there's something I can do with the BMS of that thing to make it smarter and therefore give me the chance to look at the state of charge and sort out where my battery is really at. Before I go messing around with this thing, I really don't want to short this thing out, although I know the BMS will take care of it. Say the leads off of it, because I have two sets of leads on it. If you happen to have one of these Eco-Worthies, those terminals that come with it are 13 millimeters if you're looking for that answer later. Leads out of the way, let's get some screws out of this thing. When I got my electrical work screwdriver, it has an insulated shaft there. Since I'm going to be messing with the insides of the battery, I don't want to take any chances with making contact and shorting something out. Ta-da! Hey, look at that. That looks like the BMS right on top. Wasn't really sure what to expect inside of this thing, but that seems reasonable. Let's have a look at that BMS. Can I disconnect that BMS without causing chaos? There we go. That's a P3 screw drive, but P2 does the job if you give it enough oomph behind it. Let's see, where's the rest of this thing? I suppose I disconnect this. Positive terminals off. Probably these 4 screws here on this PCB to take the entire BMS assembly out, maybe? Or maybe not. Hang on. Now, first I gotta get the rest of that done. Okay. I'm gonna have to check and see if this is a 13. It looks too small to be a 13. That's probably a 10. We got a 10 millimeter driver, or socket I should say, to put it back together. Oh, that's not useful. I don't get me wrong, I knew this battery had some damage when I bought it. I got a good deal on it, and I knew that the damage was cosmetic, and that is most certainly cosmetic. Let's see, can I do this? That is more difficult than I thought it would be. How to look at the bottom of the side of this thing. Did I just do something without need to doing? Maybe all I need to do is just these 4 screws? And I'm trying to keep track of these screws as I take them off so they don't end up rattling in the case of the battery. These just floating here? No, they're They're not floating. They are absolutely somewhat secured to the PC. This is some kind of a PCB, certainly fiberglass of some kind. Can I lift just the BMS? Aha! There we are. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that there, but that is a 250 amp hour BMS on a 280 amp hour battery. I have a feeling this would fail the K8 MRD test, and I'm looking around. Man, this is disappointing. I was really hoping that I would be able to see a header on this thing that I could tap into. I'm this deep. Let's see if I can get this cover off all the way. There's a part of me that wants to take that off. There's another part of me that says, dummy, that's gonna be really difficult to put back on if you undo that. I'm trying to do this and not short out the battery. Okay, so that's a heat sink. I should be okay just leaning it there. All right. You know what? Let me look up that part number and see if I can come up with a picture of it without this shield on it. So imagine that. I found this on AliExpress. There is absolutely no talk whatsoever of Bluetooth on this model specifically, but I'm still gonna look around and see if I can find a header that is visible. And if there is, I'll pop this thing off the shield and connect to it. And if not, well, at the very least, I learned that I have something that I can't upgrade, but that's fine. The reason I don't want to take this off just because, oh, look at that. I took the leads completely off of it. I was trying to avoid that, but what the heck now. So the silicone that was holding that cable in place obviously is not super strong, and now I can look a little bit better and see if I can spot a header that is not populated somewhere. But basically the reason I don't want to take this plate off just because is that there is obviously a heatsink on one side, but the other side also, this plate also acts as a heatsink. There are charging MOSFETs in here, I think, or there's a charging circuitry in here that dissipates heat through some thermal pads. You can see them. I don't know if you'll be able to see them there or not, but they're right there. And I don't want to mess with it unless I have to, or unless I have a real good reason to. I am not seeing anywhere where there might be a header that is not populated. Sort of disappointing. However, this BMS on AliExpress is $58. I wonder if the company that makes this also has a smart version, or I should say a Bluetooth version, that I might be able to tie or replace this without replacing this harness. If it's the same harness and if the price is right, I might just buy a different BMS. Yeah, no sight of a Bluetooth header for this thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mount it back in here, and wouldn't you know it, 10 mil. Click. Click. Are these 10 mil also? Yeah, score! Hooray for standardization! Alright, let's get these posts buttoned up. I've seen K-Murder test a lot of batteries. I don't think I've ever seen him crack one open like this. Not that there's much to see in here, obviously, other than the fact that those cells look suspiciously like the 280 amp hour cells that I got for that battery. Click. Click. Can't forget to connect the harness lead. Get rid of that extra goop that's on there. Not doing me any good right now. Okay. Okay, it feels like it's fully seated, but I have no way of knowing because the BMS is not smart enough to tell me. And let's get the other lead going on here. I have two leads on this thing. One is to run my battery box, which has, you know, all the stuff that you would expect in a battery box. So USB-C, USB-A, power poles, etc. The second lead I have for when all I need is the radio, I just tie the radio directly into this instead of using a battery box. One less thing to take to the field. And yes, I do take this thing on POTA, and you know, during the skydiving season, I take this thing to the drop zone. I will run my refrigerator and, you know, utility, you know, fan and whatnot off of the 280 over there, and I'll recharge my electronics off of this. Even though that one could do it for a weekend, either one of these batteries will do. When I'm out for a week at the drop zone or 10 days at the drop zone, that battery will, during the summer, definitely the fridge alone will take care of that battery. That's all I have on this one for now. If I decide to get a different BMS for this thing and try to make it smarter, I'll bring you back on another look-see for it, or the install process for it. Until then, catch you guys in the next one. 7-3.